Welcome to Athletic Ambitions with me, Fiona Carter.
And me, Tom Barlow.
We are here to share the stories of our Cass and Friends athletes, aspiring Olympians and world champions. We will also interview elite athletes and professionals. They will be sharing their stories, the ups and downs and bumpy ride that their journey may have. We will learn how they persevere and deal with setbacks, train and compete at the highest level, and how their mindset helps with every step of the way. So if you want to hear about our upcoming athletes and learn from the best, this podcast is for you.
This is Athletic Ambitions, where every journey begins with a single step.
Hi Max, thank you so much for coming on to the Cass and Friends Athletic Ambitions podcast. It's great to see your face this afternoon.
Thank you for having me on. It's lovely to be here.
No problem. So you came to Cass and Friends as a sports aid athlete, Max. You had been to World and European Track Championships. You've got your GB vest probably, I think, by the time you came to Cass and Friends. So fantastic to be able to support you a little bit on your journey. You were with us for maybe a couple of years, I think. But now you're over 18 and you're now progressing on your own. So tell us a little bit about, I don't know, maybe start from the age of like 12, 13 with your sport and cycling, and tell us how you've progressed.
Perfect. Yeah. So I started cycling when I was about 9, 10 properly. I actually learned to ride a bike quite late. I think I was about 7 when I first learned, and then started racing when I was 9 or 10, but it didn't really get going until I was about 12 when I started to do like some of the nationals. So they're the bigger races in the country at that age, but even obviously you're 12, so they're not big, but they're the bigger ones where some of the better riders come together. And from I started doing them from there and really found the love for it at that point in time. I started doing quite well in those races, and that always gives you a bit more extra motivation to go and do a bit more, train a bit more. And I really enjoyed it. And then obviously lockdown come around pretty soon after that. I think that was when I was first year under 14, and that put a halt to most of the racing. To be honest, I didn't do much racing then for an entire year, but I think it was quite good because I had such a good under 12 season. It gave me the motivation just to keep riding through lockdown. I actually really quite enjoyed lockdown, to be honest, because it meant I could get up. It was nice weather, to be fair, and we could just get out, get some long rides, and just get some time on the bike, really. And that was really nice. And then kept stepping through. Then I went from RSR, the Regional School of Racing with British Cycling in under 14s, then to the next step to the NSR in under 16s. So that's the National School of Racing. Mm-hmm. So then you get given a coach by British Cycling and do different camps and stay from do overnight camps and stuff with them on the road and the track. And I did. I think it's 2 years with them, I think. No, that's wrong. Sorry. It's a year with them. And then, that was during the under 16s when I eventually got selected for the Youth Olympics too. And then took the next step after that as going into juniors, moving to a different road team, and also taking the next step in British Cycling and going onto the ODS, which is the Olympic Development Squad, where you have a different approach. You do much longer camps. You can do 5 or 6 day camps, do a lot of time, but that's just purely track. Okay. And doing a lot up there, up in Manchester, and doing those camps up there, which was really, really good. And that pretty much takes me up to date now because I've just finished the junior period. So,
Fantastic. Wow. Okay. So very interesting how the different sports had a different experience in lockdown, because cycling, I remember going out on my bike and it being absolutely heavenly because the roads are quiet. And as you say, the weather was great.
Yeah.
But, the poor swimmers and tennis players couldn't do their sport really because they couldn't get access to facilities.
Yeah, exactly that. I had a mate that's a basketball player, and we had the two complete opposite. For me, I'd see 3 cars in a 3-hour ride, and it was lovely weather. I was getting sun on the skin. I was getting out. There was no cars to bother me. It was really nice. You got no school in it or anything at that point in time, really. So you could just get out. When my mate that was a basketball player, that he had a hoop in his back garden, and that was he had a maybe 3x3 meter bit of like concrete almost bounce a ball on in a hoop, but that was it really. So for him it was really hard not doing as much sport, but for me as a cyclist, it was pretty good being able to get out into some fresh air when everybody else was also, because you were able to get out to do some exercise in the fresh air. It was a really great way to get out and get some fresh air rather than being stuck indoors all day.
Yeah. Do you know the cyclist Olivia French?
I'm not. No, I don't.
She's turned professional cyclist, having been through lockdown. She was a professional. Well, she was a really, really top national level tennis player, and she went out on her bike with her dad, and she just fell in love with cycling and became a professional cyclist after lockdown. So yeah, I always think that's a really good message for our athletes, because sometimes I think athletes get so stuck on one sport, but if you're a talented sports person at one, you're often also very good at other sports as well.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think that's so. I think in lockdown, a lot of people found cycling and running. I think running's really
Mm,
trending now at the moment. I think a lot of people went into those almost endurance sports rather than say like ball playing sports almost. I think because of lockdown, but yeah, definitely with the different sports. I used to be a footballer before I started cycling and did other sports and was never not as good as I was at cycling in those, but I was never too bad at those kind of ones. And
yeah,
but yeah, you got to try a lot of sports, especially when you're young, to try and find what you actually truly like, because you might think you like something,
yeah,
realize actually how much you like something else. Like I really like football until I found cycling, and then I didn't like football at all compared to how much I like cycling, if that makes sense. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I think it's definitely really important to keep trying loads of different sports.
Yeah. So I mean, cycling is one of those sports where you truly have to beast yourselves at times. I know at the moment you're training a zone two, so that's quite nice out on the road for a few hours, but not too much too difficult in terms of the heart rate and all that stuff. How do you cope with some of those really, really horrible sessions where you're probably wanting to be sick and maybe you are sick after them? I don't know.
Yeah, I think yeah, I've definitely been sick after quite a few of the sessions, especially the coach I had with ODS. He loved a good turbo session. And one of those really hour ones were just super brutal and would really get the lungs working. They definitely got me. But I think for me, as like a performing athlete, if that makes sense, like a competitive athlete, I think I was always just kind of looking at, well, almost I got to do it because I know where I want to get to.
Yeah.
So therefore I know this is a step that I got to get to, if that makes, like, to get to there. Like I've got my goals. I know this is part of the step to get to my goals. So
Mm.
as much as it hurts now, I really want those goals. So, and like to get to those goals, and especially as quick as possible. So I think for me, that was always the motivation. It was always looking ahead. Well, I know I want to get here, and to get here, I've got to do this. So I I'm always a big goal setter as well. Like I like to set goals that are almost unachievable. I know people like, to some people it works different. Some people like to get small achievable goals and then keep going through. For me, I like to have a goal. It might be in 2 years' time, just have one big goal,
Mm.
almost unachievable. But then it means I know that I can't rest on my laurels even for a day.
Yeah.
Like I can't just go, I really don't feel like the session today, or I don't feel like pushing quite as hard, because I'm like, wow, this goal is achievable. But if I just slack for one day, maybe 2 days, all of a sudden it can fall out of my grasp very quickly. So
Yeah.
for me, that was always the like ambition, the motivation for those days, even when I really didn't want it. And it's 7, 8 o'clock at night, and you're in on the turbo on those cold days, trying to do a super hard session that late at night when you're already cooked. It's like, yeah, but I know I need to do this because I want to get here. Like I really want to get to this goal. So for me, that was always the motivation to really push myself and put myself into that pain. Really.
We have a lot of chat about that on our mindset course we do with our athletes, and in the end you never did it, but that's possibly because you have already such a strong mindset anyway. But sort of mental fitness program that we do with our athletes, we talk about really understanding your why, and you clearly do. You've got a real strong mission and purpose and reason why you're training so hard, because you set yourself some really lofty goals. And yeah, I think if you do set yourself like goals that are almost unachievable, you just get that much further anyway than you would have done if you hadn't have set it. And it doesn't sometimes matter if you don't achieve it. I set myself a target of swimming across some massive lake last year, and I didn't actually manage to do it because the weather was too cold, and I hadn't done enough cold water training, but I would never have done a 6 kilometer open water swim if I hadn't have had that goal. So I took myself much further than I would have done if I hadn't have set it, and not achieving it was fine, because down at the end of the day, it was down to me, and my training wasn't the right sort of training. But I learned a lot along the way, and that's all part of the process, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. I think I can't remember what cyclist it was that said it now. I think it might have been Geraint Thomas, but you couldn't quote me on that. But I remember him saying that you got to set massive goals because if you end up getting to a goal too easily, you might have not reached your full potential. But if you don't quite reach a goal, well, you're still at your full potential. And if you set a goal that's way beyond actually where you really want to be, well, even if you don't reach that goal, you're still going to be above where you want to be anyway because you've aimed for even more than what's capable. Even if you fall short of that, you're still going to be so much further ahead of setting a very achievable goal. And I always think of that even if I don't reach this goal, I'm so much further ahead than I would have been if I had set a nice and easy goal for me, really.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. The other thing you talk about is commitment and motivation, and there's quite a big difference between the two. What do you see as the difference between commitment and motivation?
I think motivation is you need a lot of motivation because otherwise you're not going to enjoy it. Like you need to enjoy what you're doing, and the motivation is you really enjoying it because you're motivated to train, you're motivated to push, you really want to go and do it. But it's the commitment that ultimately drives the results. I think the motivation makes you want to do it overall, makes you want to be committed, but it's the commitment, it's the day in day out of. I think I think the best example for me is these ODS camps. The coach Stuart Blunt, he's unbelievable at this. He basically the training is to teach you to be the best overall athlete you need to be, not necessarily physically. It's to set you up for the wider world afterwards in terms of pro cycling. And basically every day is super hard. And even when you can't even pedal, you just go harder, and you still have to hit the same times for each lap. Even when you're cooked, even when you can't do it, it's like, well, you got to pedal harder, you got to try harder to hit these splits. Come on, come on, come on, keep pushing, keep pushing. And that's the commitment. Like when it's 6 o'clock in the morning and you're waking up because you've got to do what is a standing 4 kilometer team pursuit, which is probably one of the most brutal events there is on track.
Yeah.
At 8 o'clock in the morning on day 5 of camp, when you're so tired, that's the commitment. You're not motivated to do that anymore. You're motivated to go into the camp. You're not motivated anymore. It's that commitment to keep going because you know you're so cooked. But if you do this when you're cooked, then when you're fresh, you're going to be even better because it's going to feel super easy when you're fresh. You're going to have so much more power. You're going to be able to go for so much longer when everybody else is tired. You're going to be, well, that camp is like 10 times as hard as this race. So I'm fine compared to everything else. And I think that's where the commitment comes in, is doing it day in, day out, and doing it when you don't want to. That's when almost the results really come. Right when you're tired is when you actually start making improvements. And that's when the commitment really kicks in, because the motivation always drops off 4 or 5 hours into a ride because you're cooked by that point. But that last hour is the bit where you're actually making the gains because you're tired, you're pushing yourself beyond your limits. And
Yeah.
that's the bit of the real gains.
Yeah, massive, massive. And so what on a day-to-day basis are you doing in terms of the commitment to the sort of like marginal gains or the process goals day to day? What how
I think that's a great question for cyclists. I think I would say it's the mini F1 almost. It's so fine tuned. And I think the more you get into the sport, the more you realize how little things like these marginal gains are. Like I remember before you go into the ODS, it's like part of British cycling. When you go into ODS, it's part of GBCT, which is the Great Britain cycling team. So it like changes slightly. And you go into this environment and you think you found like loads of little marginal gains. You're getting quite aero, you're getting good equipment, you're eating well. And then you go into this environment and you just realize that you're not even doing the basics in equivalent to doing these marginal gains. Like they'll be trying to find the difference, like on our like skin suits that we wear, we have like texture on the arms, and they'll be finding the difference, put like 0.1 of a mil between the spacings to try to find the perfect spacing in between, and exactly what type of tire is the most perfect for this wheel. And if we can put a little rib on this bit of the frame, it's going to make it this zero point 0.1 of a watt quicker, which is going to save us 0.05 of a second a lap.
yeah.
And you get down to all these little bits, and then you start eating. It's like, well, if I take concentrated beetroot, that gives me loads of nitrates, and that's going to make me 0.1% better on my VO2 max, which is going to make me go 0.1 of a second quicker. And all of a sudden, you've got all these things, and it looks like they're nothing. Like, even though little bits make a big difference in sport, those bits aren't going to make much of a difference. But if you do that 100 times, all of a sudden you've got one athlete that can't even. You could have the best athlete in the world and put him against an averagely good professional, and the averagely good professional will beat him because they've just done like 0.1% better on everything. But across 100 different things, you're so much more advanced. And I think in cycling, there's so many different bits in terms of, you got obviously the aerodynamics is the biggest thing, especially on track, but obviously a lot on road too. And then you got your fueling, your training, your eating, like weight on things, stiffness on components, even tactics, like your technical factors. People, I think especially a lot more on track, it's, you almost looks like you just the fastest rider wins, but on track it's definitely not. You can be so much tactically better, and you can like just find the little bits of when just how to structure the race slightly different for yourself, and this is going to give you a better advantage. And yeah, all those little bits add up to make a massive difference. Like, yeah, just if you to say 0.1 of a watt everywhere across 100 places, you've got 10 watts, and 10 watts is a big amount, but 0.1 of a watt's nothing.
Yeah.
That's the way you got to look at it. It's not 0.1 of a watt. It's 0.1 of a watt times however many times you do that, really.
Yeah, yeah. So you've probably got a few cycling role models, but they're probably different for different things. So like, who's the role model? Who's the best tactical racer on the track that you would look to? Or
I think it depends on the event, but I think there's two best tactical racers. One is still riding and one's recently retired. So the one that's still riding is Roger Kluger. He's a German track cyclist. He's much older now than most of the other athletes. So his physical capabilities are obviously still incredible, but they're not as good as some of the younger riders. But he's so tactically good, especially at Madison, where you have to keep slinging your partners in, which is such a complicated race to get right. Like, I don't think you can ever master it, but he's so close to that. He can save so much energy by being so good at it. He just knows what to do on the perfect scenario on the spot. And I think, yeah, he's probably almost 10 years older than the next guy in the sport, like in the race. And he's still, like, I think he come fourth with his partner in the world champs on Sunday in the Madison and stuff. Like, he's super good. And then I think the other person is Cameron Mayer, which is working with GBCT at the moment. He is Australian, but he's working with the British cycling squad. And he's, I think he's got to be one of the best like points races ever to know, not in like Madison, he's a credible Madison rider, but in the individual events, knowing which riders to follow, when you need to make your moves, and whether it's better to go for actually save yourself, go take the lap to get the points, or actually it's better to hold back and just win some sprints over the people, just to make those decisions on the bike and adapt to the race. I think he's absolutely phenomenal like that.
yeah. So being tactically good, it's like 3 watts, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's exactly that, really. Like, if you know how to race better, you're not wasting watts in other places. I think on the road, a good example is you got a massive bunch of 180 riders. It looks really easy, but if you want to be at the front of that bunch, it's really hard to get from back to front, because everybody wants to be at the front, because you're more likely to avoid crashes, there's less surgery, but everybody wants to be there. But if you know how to move up, and they almost say it's a washing machine, so like the outsides go up, the middle go back, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like the middle riders always fall back, and the riders on the outside are always ones moving up. If you know how to use that effect really well, you don't have to keep sprinting into little gaps to keep moving your way up. You can just follow the right moves and follow the right riders, and you work so much less hard to get to the front.
Yeah.
And you finish a race on so many less watts than someone else. So you can be less physically good rider, but you'll do so much less effort than another rider, just because you know how that bunch works, or you know all these different little things. You're basically getting 3 watts because you're just finishing a race on 20 or 30 watts less than another rider.
Yeah, and you've not had all those surges that are going to, like in triathlon terms, we call it burning matches. You've just carried on going. So how are you trying to develop your technical skills and ability to sort of be more efficient?
I think it's a lot of it you've got to do in practice. So you've got to do it. You've got to know what you're aiming for, so you know when you've made a mistake, if that makes sense. Like, I know quite often I'll be moving and I'll see something, I'm like, I made the wrong decision there. Next time I've got to look at that. And I think moving up something I was always really bad at, when even though it's not my specialty, it's something I've got a lot better at. I think you've got to learn what you're doing wrong, watch other riders and look how they're doing it. Like a recently retired rider, Sir Mark Cavendish, he's incredible at this. He's almost not actually... Everybody looks and she's the best sprinter ever, is one of the best physical riders. There's a lot better physical riders than him, like physiology wise, but he knows how to move up perfectly and exactly what wheel to follow. So there's so much footage of racing. You can watch him and just watch a race and just follow him just for an hour in the last hour of the race when it's getting really hectic, and just see what he does. And you go, okay, I'd have gone left there, but he's chose to go right. Okay, now he's actually in a better place than where I would have been. Why has he done that? And then all of a sudden you start to realise why he's doing all these little things. What's the better move to do? So it's almost, learning from your own mistakes and also watching other riders that do it so well. You can learn why they're doing it so well and learn off them really.
So how much time would you actually, like, I know athletes would get very hung up on our physical training, we spend hours and hours, but actually sitting down and watching those YouTube videos or working on your mental fitness, how much time do you spend doing that, or do you really not have time to do it at all?
I think I don't spend nowhere near enough time on it, if that makes sense. I'm one of those riders that gets hung up a lot more on the numbers and the physical elements, and if that makes sense, either trying to save watts, not by doing that, like save watts in other places, or gain watts on myself, if that makes sense, like become physically better. But probably an hour or so a week I'll probably spend, which isn't enough, but just watching little bits back. We do quite a lot it's a lot on the track. We do this. We'll watch we'll do our team pursuit. We'll have it recorded, and then we're like, okay, we changed in the wrong place there. Yeah, our line wasn't good there when we looked at it, and stuff like that. So I think on the track we spend a lot of time doing it, but in lots of short, small spaces, because team suit's something we do a lot, and Madison we do a lot. We'll do our training, so we'll do a 4K or a rolling 3 kilometers or something like that, come off, and then we'll be like, the rider I'll be following, I'll be like, oh, your line wasn't right through the banking, you're too high. And he's like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. I know I've got to aim to get lower next time. And so you might only spend 5 or 10 minutes after each one, but if you do 6 or 7 lots of that and you're spending 10 minutes every time, all of a sudden you spent an hour in your training.
Yeah.
Those little bits. I think track you do it quite a lot by looking at short snippets after every single one and just aiming to do that one little thing better every time you get on the track.
Yeah.
You get on the track so much, all of a sudden you can become a lot better by just looking at one little thing each time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
But yeah, I still don't think I spend enough, especially in terms of the road, looking actually back at footage and thinking about what I've actually, okay, maybe I didn't. I'm always thinking about, okay, I know where I've messed up, like tactically or something, but not necessarily technically where I could improve, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so,
it does. It makes perfect sense. So, so you're talking about track, you talk about road races. What do you prefer? Do you prefer the track or the road, or is it?
I think road's my favourite. I think they're very different type of things. So a track race, there's loads of different track races. So you've got the pursuits, which are more like time trials, but they're much shorter. And then you've got the bunch races, which is more like just a normal road race. But I always say on a flat road race, a track race is almost like the last 30 minutes of a road race. But just that's the race. So everybody's a lot fresher coming into it. So it's a lot more manic. And I much prefer long races. So I much prefer hours and hours racing where you can save those little watts here and there over many hours, and then it all plays out eventually when everybody else is cooked or you're cooked, and then it all slowly falls apart. And I'm a climber as well, so I much prefer the climbs when track's a little bit too explosive for me. Everything happens that little bit too quick, and I like the adrenaline rush of, okay, what's happening here? How can I get this right? Okay, this is playing out. This breakaway's got a big gap. Are we going to get it back or not? Perfectly. Do you see what I mean? Like all those bits. When track, it happens too quickly for me. Somebody's attacked, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I've got to be on that, but I've taken a second too long to react, so that one's gone. And I think I struggle a bit more with that. It's so fast paced. It's less enjoyable for me really. I'd rather it play out across many hours.
Yeah. So tell us how do you fuel yourself on like a 4 or 5 hour road race?
I think if in terms of a racing, I'll range between 120 and 180 grams of carbs an hour.
Wow, that's loads.
So I think the biggest race I'd done for carbs this year was Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and I think I did like 180 in the first 2 hours, 150 in the third hour, and then it was like another 40 minutes, and I took another 100 grams or something in that last 40 minutes, it's a lot to stomach. Like you have to be like trained to stomach it, but I think that's something luckily I'm quite like genetically good at. I don't like, my stomach's quite strong, quite bulletproof. like I know a lot of people, it doesn't matter how much they trained 180 grams, they might not be able to stomach it. With me, I can do 1 or 2 rides at the start of the year just to reintroduce myself back into it, and I'm fine again, and I can stomach it. Like it won't cause any like stomach pain or anything like that. But yeah, I think you still got to be able to train it to be able to absorb it that quickly. But yeah, big amounts of carbs in races, that's for sure. It makes a huge difference.
Is it in your bottle or is it in gels?
It depends. For me, I like to have it in bottles. Mostly, I've got to have it in gels as well because you can't take that amount just in bottles. But the hotter it is, the more I need the extra electrolytes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when it gets over maybe 23, 24 degrees, I no longer have carbs in the bottles and I just have pure electrolytes, so like super strong electrolyte mixes in the bottles, and then just take it in gels. But at the moment, I've been using really strong bottles and really strong gels. So I think the bottles I use are 80 grams of carbs and the gels are 40. And then there's also like they're like gummy chews almost, and they're like 46 or something. So if you're doing 120 grams of carbs, you can take one bottle and one gel or 3 gels. It's a lot, but it's as long as you can stomach it. It's because it's so high carbs, it's easier to take, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. Wow. So, and you just said at the beginning of we just chatted a bit before we started the podcast. You're living at home, so have you got somebody cooking lots of lovely meals for you, or do you have to cook your own food? Or
I think so. My mother always cooks my dinner for me, which is lovely. To be fair, it's always good to know have a nice cooked meal, isn't it, for you? That's for sure.
yeah,
And yeah, breakfast. Usually, you're not cooking anything for yourself. Maybe you might cook yourself an omelette or something. But then lunch, I normally cook. But I'm not. Sometimes I'm adventurous, but most of the time I have stuff pretty. When I'm cooking myself, that's for sure. I normally have it pretty bland. It's pretty just. It'll be like pasta and tuna is a big go-to of me, and it will literally just be pasta and tuna. It won't be pasta and tuna and cheese or pasta and tuna and a sauce. It will be pasta and tuna, and
oh my God.
that's my lot. Most of the time, it's either because I finished training and I can't be asked to do anything else with it. I'd rather just have a lot of vegetables at dinner when either my mother's cooking or at another time, or then have a piece of fruit on the side rather than try and jazz up my lunch really. But yeah, so I do one meal a day is definitely cooked for me, and then yeah, other than that, normally it's me cooking.
Yeah, that's funny. God, not even a drizzle of olive oil. That wouldn't take. That wouldn't take too long. The marginal gain of the oil as well might do you some good. You never know.
I probably should start adding stuff to it. Like my mum's always just like, oh, you could just add some like sweet corn and peas. You can just put it in like once your pasta's half cooked, just tip it in. I'm just like, yeah, but then I got to find it in the freezer. I'm just like, oh, just that's a minefield, isn't it? The freezer, just there's just stuff everywhere. That's not a go-to for me. I'm like, oh no, I'm just quite happy. I'll just have extra sweet corn and peas or something in my dinner tonight.
That's funny. So you're living at home now, but what's the plan? What's your sort of 2, 1, 2, 3 year goal in terms of where you want to be?
I think definitely I want to move abroad from the fact of it's horrible weather in this country.
Yeah.
It's the pretty much sole and only reason. It's when it's 1 degree hammering with rain and you've got to do 5 hours. Like I would say, cycling it's colder than anything else because when you're like walking and you don't have like the wind chill as much.
Yes.
When almost like sticking your head out the window of a car when you're driving along, covered in water, like getting out straight out the shower, getting out into 1 degree, and then just having like a super high powered fan on you. It's super cold. So I want to hopefully move somewhere like a bit more like a Girona or somewhere like there, Banyoles, near there, where it's even though it's not sunny and glorious in the winter, it's still 10 degrees or a bit more, which is cold, but it's much more bearable. Even if it rains, you can wrap up a lot easier against it, and you're not so worried about stuff freezing and the roads freezing over. So I think once I manage to sort my visa out, because that's the issue at the moment, because the new rules are you only get 90 days in Europe for every 180 days. That's like rolling. No. So you can go and stay out there and live out there, especially with the racing. So yeah, I think I need to get my visa sorted out first, and then once I've done that, I'll start to look at moving abroad. And yeah,
so if you get your visa sorted, you can stay for many more days?
Yeah, if I get a visa, I can stay out there 365 days of the year if I want. But I've just got to get it sorted, and it can be quite a long process. It's not super easy to do because just lots of different reasons. By the time you've got to sort out all the legalities of it, and like you got to prove they're different depending on what visa you got to go to. You've got to prove you have the money in the bank, or you have to prove that you're on a certain wage, or lots of different things like that. So, and then once you send all the paperwork back and forwards and stuff like that, it can take quite a while. So
Yeah.
I take a bit of time first to do sort all of that. But yeah, that's the main aim.
Yeah. And are you working at the moment? Or are you just full-time athlete? Tell me.
Full-time athlete now because I start getting paid come January. So I start getting paid by my team, come January. So that technically is my job then. But at the moment, I haven't got a job. I'm just an athlete. But yeah, come January, it becomes a proper job then.
Fantastic. So tell us about the team then.
Um,
You're not.
I'm not so much allowed to be honest. It's because it hasn't been announced yet. I can't say where I'm going, but yeah, it's going to be, it's very exciting, and hopefully it should be announced pretty soon now. But yeah, it's just taking a little bit of time to sort all different bits out to do with it and stuff like that. But yeah, it'll be really good, really good. Looking forward.
Fantastic. Well, let's hope that they can maybe help you sort the visa as well. Who knows? I don't know anything about this sort of stuff, but fingers crossed that might help you as well.
Yeah, definitely, because they got to even though they obviously have a lot of foreign riders, so that's not an issue for them, but they do have some British riders. So yeah, they've obviously had to sort this out before, and so hopefully between me, the team, and my agent, we can sort that out really and get it sorted as quickly as possible. But yeah,
And
definitely do list.
brilliant. And you mentioned if you're on the Olympic development squad, does that mean that there's potential for Olympics next round or the round after? Or
Yeah, definitely. But I've decided, like, we finished the ODS cycle. When I finished Road World Champs, that's technically the end of my ODS, and then you go on to the next stage, which is podium potential. However, I've decided I don't want to continue with the track because they didn't align properly for me, if that makes sense, as being a climber on the road rather than necessarily a sprinter. The training is pretty different between the track and the road, and the commitments I got to do for both the British cycling side and the team side. It was going to be very hard to achieve proper goals and to reach my full potential in both. I decided I had to choose one, and in the end, the road is always something I preferred that little bit more. So I decided to go down that route. But yeah, so potentially I can always come back. I think Josh Tarlin's a great example of this. He just come to the World Champs and medalled in both of his events on the track in Chile this last week, and he's did the ODS and then decided to leave it because of his road team, and then he's now come back after I think 3 years of leaving to come back and do the track. And I don't know whether he'll be going to the Olympics. Obviously, they haven't made that selection yet, but it's definitely still a possibility for me to come back. But that doesn't necessarily mean I'll be doing as much track now. It makes it a bit harder, really, to go to the Olympics, especially for the track because of that. But it's still definitely not off the cards, I think.
Yeah, it feels to me like from the cyclists that I've followed in the past, they flip-flop from track to road to track and you can go each way, but I can see that would be very, very difficult to do both in parallel.
Exactly, yeah. I think one of my teammates on my road this last year, and I've been on the ODS with him, so he's the same age as me. He's going to another development team like me, and for him, I think it's a lot easier because he's a sprinter on the road, and track's very explosive. It's very sprinter like, if that makes sense. And for him, the training he needs to do on the road is the exact same training he need to do for the track, pretty much, if that makes sense. So they're say 80% similar. But for me as a climber, it's a very unsprintery part, like on the road when the track's very sprintery, and I'm less explosive naturally as an athlete. So for me, I've got to put a lot more work into that to keep going and be good on the track. And I think, it's going to be very hard to align to get a good enough training for the track and be able to perform where I need to on the track, as well as doing the right training for the road and being able to perform where I need to. So, I think it definitely works. You can definitely work the both. I just think it sometimes also depends on your goals and the type of athlete you are. If you're much more of an explosive athlete and that's where you're going on the road as well, it's a lot easier to align than necessarily someone that's less explosive on the road and going to do a very not very explosive job on the road compared to the obviously very explosive side of track cycling.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And with the ODS, do they give you some sports psychology support? Do they have the equivalent of a Steve Peters there?
So they do have psychologists, but they don't. We don't work with the British cycling psychologists.
Mhm.
We get given a scheme called TAS.
Oh, I
So
know Cass, yeah.
yeah, talent athlete support scheme, I think it stands for.
Yeah.
On that, we get given a psychologist, a nutritionist, a S&C coach, medical support, and I feel like I'm missing another one there. But those kind of things to help us. So rather than necessarily, we work a little bit with the British cycling nutritionist, we will still work with the British cycling S&C coach, etc. We get our own personal ones that we can work to one. So I've had a lot of psychology support from them in terms of like through the task system.
Yeah, brilliant. And what about the S&C stuff? How much time do you spend a week doing that?
So we do usually do the sessions are normally an hour, maybe they usually go a little bit over to get everything in you need. It's usually an hour 15, maybe an hour and a half. And I do 2 sessions a week when I'm not racing and 1 session a week when I do race. So the weeks I race it's only one. The weeks I'm not racing it's 2 sessions a week. And yeah, I think that's a very bit of a misconception in cyclists. It's very almost traditional as you don't want to gain muscle. You need to stay nice and light. You don't want to go in the gym, but actually it's super beneficial. Doesn't mean you're going to go big and strong and get like a bodybuilder and look like a big nice rugby player or something.
Yeah.
You still stay in the same shape, but just be so much stronger, so much fitter, so much injured. Like the chance of getting injured is also a lot less, and you can be a lot more pain free with it too.
Yeah, much more robust.
Exactly.
Stronger tendons and ligaments, which
Exactly.
you don't want those to go. Muscles are a little bit easier, but tendons and ligaments, you don't want those to go. Have you had any injuries at all, or have you been lucky and been injury free?
I think I'm quite a fragile athlete, so I get a lot of small injuries very easily. There's not really a day goes by when I don't have something hurting, but it will change day to day. I'll wake up and my back hurt yesterday, but now it's my arm or my leg or something. So I tend to get quite a little like lots of that. I think the S&C's really helped in terms of especially with the other one I forgot to mention for TAS was physio. So like with the S&C and the physio, it's helped a lot by getting much more injury free. But I've definitely had a few this year. I think I had a big crash in 6 Day Ghent last October,
Yeah.
and I didn't realize, but one of my hips was out of line. So that basically my hips are wonky, and I kept riding like that. And then almost 6 months later, it caused a lot of pain and tightness in my ITB down the left side. And obviously, I had to have a lot of work done to like get that. I only missed 3 days of training. I think it was only 3 days where it was too bad I couldn't train because as long as the pain wasn't too bad, I could train with it because the training wasn't necessarily going to make it worse. It,
Yes.
as long as it wasn't too painful to ride, which for 3 days it was, but after that it was a little bit better. So I've, to be honest, touch wood at the moment, I've been super lucky. Like I've not had any serious. Like I've had injuries, small injuries here and there, pain, but nothing that's gone like, yeah, you're not riding your bike for 6 weeks now. Nothing like that at the moment.
That's good. That's good. But it's like looking at the whole, like if that happened, it's like you then got to take a big look on the long picture, the big perspective. And yes, you might be out for 6 months, but during that time, you'd always be working on some really good S&C. You never like to hear it at the time, but you do always come back stronger.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's good to have the reset with the body because through lockdown you didn't give your body a rest. You kept on training, which was fantastic at the time, but occasionally the injury. I always think there is a bit of a silver lining or a gift of an injury of something, but you never see it at the time.
yeah, definitely. I think it's one of those ones where I think it's almost getting injured is always better not to get injured. I think if you get injured, it is a necessarily negative. I think depending what it is, it might give you a nice break. In hindsight, like it might actually didn't realize you needed a mental break or stuff like that. So it can definitely help you in those sense. But I think an injury is always negative, but you're going to get injured throughout your career, and so's everyone else.
Yeah.
I think you've just got to take it. Say on average, people get injured 10 times over their career. You got to look and go, wow, I'm going to at some point. I'm really annoyed, but it's going to happen. So I guess it's happened now. That's the way I kind of look at it. As it's really annoying, but I've just got to go. Well, this goal that I had for 2 years' time, I'm out for 5 months or 6 months, so it's now in 2.5 years' time.
Yeah.
So I think it's not always a negative, and if you have it like late on in the season and that's the end of your year, you have your off season then. So say I almost had a month of off season. If you've got a 2 month injury, you've only lost a month of training because you had a month off season anyway, if that makes sense. So you all these different bits, and then you've got time to look at other things. Maybe you can have another time and looking, being able to do more bike fits, or looking at your technical ability, or maybe doing some upper body strength work or lower body strength work, depending on what you're doing. So I think people always think it's more of a negative than it is, if that makes sense. So people think that, well, they've lost 6 months of never doing anything. Well, you can still learn stuff in 6 months. Yeah, it might have been better that you didn't get injured, but you can still learn a lot during that time. And getting injured is part of doing a sport. It's unpreventable. I think, especially in cycling, with so many crashes, you're going to get injured. You kind of just almost have to accept it, see what you can work on while you're injured, and just push your goals back another however long it needs to be, and just go back from there, get restarted, and go, okay, well, I need to just, once your injury's done, don't push yourself too hard at the beginning, get your way back in, don't rush yourself back, but then just be like, okay, that's fine. We go again, we start training again. We always keep pushing to be the best we can.
Yeah. You've signed up for the job description of being an athlete. Like almost one of the bullet points on the job spec would be you're going to get an injury at some point in time.
Yeah.
If you'd signed up to be a waitress or waiter in a cafe, one of the lines of the job description might have been you've got to clean the toilets. You can't not do it. You've got to, it's part and parcel of the job spec, isn't it, really?
Exactly, it is. It definitely is. And I think if you don't know it when you're going into a sport, especially by this point, I think you're just choosing not to see it, if that makes sense. Like, no, you're choosing not to see that that's going to be a part of it, especially, I think, with cycling a lot, like the crashing, you've got to accept it's going to happen. You've got to accept it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And you've almost just got to accept that and move on again.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the crashes, I think my coach Stuart for this last year and a half, 2 years, he was very good on that. I remember crashing again. He's like, yeah, but you could be leading the Tour de France one day and you've got to get back on tomorrow. So you're getting back on tomorrow, I don't care that you can't walk to the van. It doesn't matter. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with you. You got to get back on. You got to move on. It's happened. This is part of the sport. That's what it is. Get your head back in the game. We go again tomorrow. That kind of thing. You got to almost just accept it, almost tick a box and go, okay, yeah, it's happened. That's really bad. I'm probably not going to sleep for a week now because I'm in so much pain. However, especially if you've not broken anything and you are actually able to ride, you go, wow, okay, I'm in a lot of pain, but I'm ultimately not injured. I've just got to get on with this. I know this is what it is from the start. I think, especially for pro cyclists, it's a bit like football. The money's really high, and one of the reasons for that is because there's a lot of injuries. You could get seriously injured. You're probably going to crash a lot. It's probably going to hurt a lot, and a lot of people don't want to do that. And that's also one of the reasons you get maybe paid that amount, or you get such a good life or such a good journey through sport, is because of these. Because downfalls, everything's got a bit of a downfall, and I guess that's one of those, and you just almost got to accept it, I guess. But yeah,
I do. I find I absolutely, as you imagine, I absolutely love sport, but there sometimes is that double-edged sword of like you're so fit, but there's a real balance between being completely fit or completely. I can't say the word on the podcast really because there'll be younger athletes listening, but it's that line. And I don't know whether you probably did, but it was the Ironman World Championships 2 weeks ago with females. And you've got two unbelievably brilliant athletes racing in Kona, which is ridiculously hot and humid. And they're pushing themselves. They've burnt all their matches. One of them almost collapses in the middle of the run, the marathon at the end. Her husband pulls her off the course. The other one, who was then winning, she collapses 2 miles from the end, having already done like 138 miles of the Ironman. And it's like, oh, is that safe? Is it sensible? Is it good for your bodies? Is it not? She was so hot. I think her core temperature went to about 43 degrees.
that's
I know, and it's like, oh, I love it, but also is a bit dangerous at times too.
Yeah, I think I'm quite almost in that sense quite traditionally minded. I'm almost quite brutal on myself, and with the sport, I'm kind of like, yeah, but you want to do it, so you got to get on with it. Almost, I think I've been brought up with that. I think I'm like that. My dad's like that. I think some of the coaches I've had are quite like that as well. Like, and that's what I like almost. But I'll look at it and I'm just like, well, if you want to win, there's someone prepared to collapse like that woman was prepared to collapse to win. So if you're not going to be prepared to collapse to win, then you don't deserve to win, because that person wants it more than you, because she's prepared to do that. And I think going back to something we talked about earlier, when really pushing yourself in that pain cave, when you're really pushing and like I'm throwing up there, I'm like, this is good. There's somebody else out there that I need to be that's going harder than me. I've got to get back to it. You know, it is very brutal. And I think doing sport is unbelievably healthy for you. Doing the sport to the level into which some of these athletes do it, like maybe, especially by the point I maybe get professional and other like that, like other professionals like those at Kona, I think it almost borderlines with a bit of not being healthy. You push your body to such extremes that, like I think with cyclists, you see by the time you're 35, half of them can't walk. They have shoulders, different heights from all the crashes. I think Cavendish has had 5 shoulder replacements or something crazy like that. I don't know exactly what it is because of all the crashes and stuff. I think you almost borderline tip to the unhealthy, but in the same sense, that's what you've got to do for your job, I guess, isn't it? A bit. It's not the same, but a fireman has to go in and save people from fires. It's not like that. We're maybe not endangering ourselves to that level, of course, but that's part of his job. That's what he's got to do. I think I almost look at it like that. If you want to win, you want to be professional, people are willing to push themselves to that length. So therefore, you've got to push yourself to that length to get to that level and be there. You know.
Yeah, and you get to choose. It's your choice to do it.
Exactly.
So it's a privilege to be in that position, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's exactly that, really. Yeah.
Oh, so I'll just ask you a couple more questions because I'm slightly conscious of the time. If you could go back and give advice to your younger self, to some of the younger athletes that we've got with Cass and Friends, what would you say, do you think, looking back?
I think
I know
it's
you're still really young anyway, but...
Yeah, I think it's the don't stress and enjoy it. I think you've got to, I think definitely, I know for me, you've got to train harder when you're younger. You've got to do all these things because, especially in cycling, it's getting harder and harder, younger and younger, because more of these people are doing more of these things younger and younger. But it's don't stress, get the basics right, and you'll be going very well. Like as an under 16, like as a youth, it's called, as an under 16 or younger, if you get in the basics right, you're where you need to be. You know, you don't need to be doing all these fancy things. And if you've got a bike that's good enough, that's all you need. You don't need the bike Pogs riding, you know, like Pogacar's riding. Yeah, it's going to make you go even quicker, but you don't need it. You need that when you get to a junior or an under 23 or professional. I think at the moment, nail the basics, because everything's going to get so hard older. And like for me now, if I continue on to say I'm 35 for my career, I've got another 17 years yet. I've got almost as long as I've got alive still doing this at the highest level. So don't stress about it when you're 14, when you're 15. You've got a long way still to go. Yeah, you've got to do enough to keep yourself progressing from each level to each level. But if you're getting the basics right, you're eating healthy, you're training enough, but don't go crazy, but you're just training enough, you're getting the right training in, and you're sleeping well, you're already 90% there. All these last little marginal gains aren't necessarily needed at your age, because you've got so long of being a professional and say weighing your food or training to the point of collapse and doing 30-40 hour weeks where you're on a plane 3 times a week, flying here, there and everywhere. And you're seeing a physio every day to make sure, because you're doing so much training, you need to see a physio every day to make sure you're not going to get injured and be in pain and you can still walk afterwards and stuff. You're so long of that. Don't stress when you're younger. Just get the basics right and you're going to be already pretty much there.
Yeah, and the first thing you said before you said even get the basics right, you said have fun. Like,
yeah,
just enjoy it. Just have a laugh with your mates. Make sure that you've got a good balance with your school friends and a bit of work. Do your schoolwork as best you can. Because, like you say, it's putting it in perspective. As you say, you've got 17 more years to keep doing it, and as you say, that's not much older than that anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And like I've been racing from the point of 9. So I've done it for half my life and it already feels like an eternity of racing. Obviously, I enjoy it, but it still feels like, right, I've been doing this a long time, like a long, long time. And I've got to do how long I've just even been alive, some more years than I can even remember being alive, continuing this in the sport. You've got a long way to go. So for those years, enjoy it. Have fun with your mates. Do all of these kind of things, you know? If you're enjoying the sport, you're going to be performing so much better than if you're not enjoying the sport as well. And you need to be in a good mental, like a good headspace really to continue with your sport and actually outside of life too.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Talking of enjoying it, have you got any opportunity to go for little tiny winter camp in the sun before January or not?
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to get as little of the cold weather as possible. So from the 4th to 17th of December, I think I've got, so what's that, 10 days? No, a little bit longer than that, out in Denia, out in just northeast of Alicante.
Right.
And then just after Christmas, I'm going out to Pathos in Cyprus to go training out there, because that one doesn't count as part of my 90 days in Europe.
Brilliant.
Then back out again in the 20th of Jan or something for another 10 or 12 days out there in Denia again. So at the moment, I've got 3 camps on the cards. Got quite a bit out there, luckily. So
Good.
yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. Not having to be in the cold, wet weather, hopefully. So
that'll motivate you. That'll be great.
Definitely, I'll get a lot more motivation when when I can feel my hands, I can feel my feet, and I can see more than 10 meters in front of me. I'm finding that very motivating.
Oh, good stuff. Oh, Max, well, lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you this afternoon.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. It's been absolutely lovely.
Brilliant.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Athletic Ambitions. We hope you found this episode of interest, and if so, be sure to send this to your family and friends who might also benefit. If you're interested in donating to Cass and Friends, the links are in the description, and we'll hope to see you in the next episode. Thanks, Tom and Fee.